And today we are continuing a series. As soon as we can put the slide up. No. Sure, where you are. There we go. Very good. We're continuing a series today. I had to make sure we knew what it was. No, I'm just playing. I know what it is. It's called Love Like Jesus. Love like Jesus. Jesus said this in John 13, verse 34. He said, "A new command I give to you." I'll tell you this, that it's very unusual when he was talking to his disciples or even us to say a new command. There's so many commands. And then he said this, love one another. And I think at that point, his disciples kind of were like, okay, we've kind of heard love one another. And maybe we have as well. And then he said, love one another as I have loved you. You must also love one another. And this is how they'll know that you're my disciple if you love one another. I mean, that's very redundant. It is. I mean, how many times can he say it? You know why he's saying it so many times? Because he's going, I never want following me to turn into just a list of rules. Not that rules aren't important, but it matters not only what you do, but how you do it and why you do it and the motivation behind it. And he's saying it's so important that you love like I love. He's basically telling them, if you want to be my follower, and so if you're a follower of Jesus today, you're going to want to lean into this because that's exactly what he's saying. He says, you must do what I do. If you're not a follower of Jesus, you're welcome in on this dialogue. By the end, you might go, hey, when I find out what it means to be one, I may want to be one. And he's saying, you have to love like me. And so what we're doing in this series is we're taking a look at three. We're getting back to some very basic things to say, if you want to love like Jesus, what do you have to do? And we're looking at three areas. Last week, we took a look at that if we want to love like Jesus, we got to forgive like Jesus. And he challenged us, and I think last week was very challenging for a lot of us as we realized that God gave us grace and mercy, but he's asking us to do the same. What happens after God has given us mercy? That we have to give it to others. In fact, he went on to say that if you don't forgive other people, I won't forgive you. So maybe go back and listen to that one because it was kind of very challenging to say God will forgive us like we forgive other people, like we treat other people. And so check that out for yourself. Today, I'm going to let him set it up for himself. Just like he did last week, Jesus not only tells us what to do, but he demonstrates it. In fact, today, most of what we're going to talk about is what Jesus modeled, and it's such an amazing communication tool that he actually does it. John chapter 13 and verse 1 is what we're going to take a look at today, and it says this, it was just before the Passover festival, Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave the world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with a towel that was wrapped around him. So I want to kind of set this up for you just a little bit. We've covered this passage before if you've been here, but we want to pull out a few new things today. If you've never heard this passage, then that's great because you can listen to it like it was your first time. If you have heard it before, I hope you'll look at it not as though, oh, yeah, I got that, because I think there's some things here that we might not get. So anyway, they're celebrating Passover, which is a Jewish festival. It's a Jewish holiday, really, where they celebrate that Moses came and got them out of Egypt and God delivered them from the death angel and the death angel passed over them. That's what Passover means, simply put. And what happened right before this meal is interesting. So if you want to know about this, the gospel accounts tell it from different angles. So parallel to this gospel, Luke chapter 22 is another place you can read about this account. And what it says is right before they're coming into this Passover meal, where Jesus knew this will be the last time I spend with my disciples before going to the cross. They didn't know that. This week had been incredible for them, and it culminated with them eating a meal together. But he knew, it's just like it said that Judas was going to betray him. In fact, he was already starting the process before this meal. And Jesus knew it, but he knew this meal was be important to them. But in Luke 22, what we find is that the disciples had been arguing. You know what they're arguing about? Who was the greatest in the kingdom of God? And so as they come in, and it's taken me many years to really know this. I don't know why. I mean, I'm just very ADHD, so I guess I didn't pay attention to it. As they come into the room, Jesus gets up from the table as he's watching them and knowing that that's what they're talking about, and he starts to wash their feet. It wasn't weird to have your feet washed. It was weird that he was doing it. They were coming in with dirty feet, but nobody was taking the time to serve each other. That's the picture. And so Jesus just starts to do it. It kind of reminds me of the world that we live in today a little bit, right? That there's never been a more time where people look at power. I think that's always been the case, but it seems like even more today that we have less followers and more self-proclaimed leaders. Is that true? I mean, if you go on YouTube, everybody is an influencer. Is that right? I mean, like, they're experts. But and I don't mean any disrespect, because I watch a lot of YouTube clips and a lot of people, but you haven't done it very long, right? And you got people that are experts in the church world, but they just planted the church, right? And they go, come to my conference and get my self-help, and I'm a coach, but I've only done it for a couple weeks. You know, you got people telling you how to raise your kids, and their kid is 2, right? And you're going, I don't think you even have a clue, right, yet until you get to any teenage years. And then you're going, hey, people that think their kids are in teenage, wait till they become young adults. You think you're done, but, anyway, you get the picture, right? Self-proclaimed experts, right? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most powerful of them all, right? We got power players, we got power couples, whatever that means, right? That is powerful. It's about us. It's about promoting self. That's exactly where the disciples were. I want you to think of that. When you think about the way Jesus views leadership versus the way a lot of us view leadership. And maybe this will haunt you just like it haunts me. I want to read you a reference, Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 13, if you want to write it down. It says, you said in your heart, he's talking about Satan. Before Satan fell from heaven, he said this, I will ascend to the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit enthroned on the Mount Simbli in the utmost height of Mount Zavon. I will ascend to the tops of the clouds. I will make myself like the Most High. 5 times, 5 phrases. Satan says, I will, I will, I will. Can I tell you what that sounds like to me a lot? A lot of the leadership stuff that I read. Scary, isn't it? I will. But he's saying if that is your view of leadership, if that is your goal, be careful because you will fall, right? That won't last. But Jesus is showing something that will. Jesus does something in this room that is strange. They never had in their day. It's weird for us to think of washing feet because we don't do that, right? I mean, hopefully you wash your feet, but anyway. But we don't do that as you come in. That's a custom for them. But in their day, it was the lowest person on the totem pole. If you're in the military, then you get that kind of thing, right? I mean, it's like, hey, dude, generals don't wash feet, right? The least person does. And they're all arguing, so nobody is washing feet. Nobody is doing this service. And Jesus looks at that, and he just does it. He doesn't complain about it because he kind of flipped what leadership means in a way, serving each other, right? He was serving, but not subservient. That's important. You know what the word subservient means? I wrote down a definition. Subservient means less important or subordinate, being in a lower position or rank. It wasn't because he was subordinate that he did it, right? It wasn't because he was inferior. In fact, later on, you know what he says? That you call me Lord and Master. You call me Lord and Teacher, and rightly so, for that is what I am. He didn't have a lack of confidence. I think that's what some people think, right? It's not a lack of self-worth that Jesus didn't know who he was. It wasn't that. He said he realized that I'm serving. Serving doesn't mean that I'm weak. It doesn't mean that I'm ignorant. It doesn't mean that I'm unintelligent or inferior or unworthy. I'm not serving because I'm weak. I'm serving because I'm strong. It's interesting, right? Because here's what I know. Sometimes it's very hard for people that have been abused to serve. Or they'll get it wrong. They'll go back from one side to the other. Some people feel so unworthy. They feel, right? Not just serving, but subservient. I don't have any confidence, so I'm so unworthy. I do these lowly positions, but I do it because, right? Or it's the flip side, right? I have a lust for power. I'm power thirsty because why? Because I will never be vulnerable again, because the last time I did that, it didn't work out so well for me. So serving is almost a trigger, isn't it, for some of us, right? You don't ask me to serve, I'm not going to do it. I'm standing up for me because big me has to stand up for little me, right? And I can't serve. Yet Jesus is showing us something different. Jesus is showing us that he could serve even while Judas was betraying. You know what? If you read this story, and that's why I read the first part of it, if you go back, check this out. In the evening, the meal was in progress, and already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot. The devil had already prompted him. It was in progress, the betrayal. And you know who knew that? Jesus. So what are you doing washing feet, right? Can I tell you something? If I knew one of my leaders is going behind my back and today we're going to have an all-out brawl about this and in a couple hours this is all going to come to a head, I don't think I would be washing people's feet, would you? Yet Jesus paused, right? In fact, can I tell you something? He washed Judas' feet, right? I don't think he was there for the full meal. I think he left, right? But all I'm telling you is that he washed his feet. See, Jesus wasn't concerned about the betrayal because that's not what he was focused on. He was focused on what he knew. He wasn't focused on feelings. He was focused on what he knew. Does that make sense? Because if he focused on his feelings that he's going to be betrayed, he wouldn't have done this. Jesus knew that he came from God. That's what it said right before, right? And that he was going back to God. He knew that nothing that Judas could do could stop him. He knew that I am still God even if Judas leaves the table. See, he knew who he was. See, I know that even if you betray me to the Romans, I am still God. I know that even if you nail me to a cross, I'm still God. Nothing changes that. Let me ask you a question. What do you know? Who are you? Right? This will make a big difference as to whether you can serve or not or whatever else. What do you know? I know who I am, right? Do you? Even if I heard somebody talking about me, right? I heard you talking about me. I know who I am even though, right? You talk bad about me. I know who I am even if you insulted me on Facebook, or do you, right? How many people have stopped serving because of that, right? I'm a child of the King. I'm purchased by God. I have been washed in his blood. Are you still that? And when you can focus on that, it changes everything. I want to kind of change gears that Jesus took off his outer clothing and he put on a towel. That's servant's clothes, right? He wrapped it around himself. It's symbolic. He says, no one takes my life, I lay it down, right? That Jesus took on the form of a servant. becoming humble even to the place, being humble to death, even death on a cross. That's what it says about him. This is all symbolic. Let me ask you a question. What will you lay down to serve? I want to give you a couple things that we can lay down. Some things we have to lay down if we really want to serve God. These are the things I think that hold us back from doing the very things that Jesus did. Because foot washing, even though in our day, one of the things we do, and I'm not opposed to it, but they have foot washing ceremonies. And I'm good with it as long as it's done in a certain way. My problem with it sometimes is I could do a foot washing today. I even thought about it, right? You get somebody up here on the stage and you pull off their shoes and you show them how I wash feet in front of everybody, doing a task that no one does today. That's not what he did. He did menial tasks that only servants do, that nobody that's dignified would do. See? And you know what? That's going to cost you something if you do it, right? You got to remove something. You got to lay some things down. Can I give you a couple of them? They all start with T. Time. My time's valuable. Let me ask you a question. Do you have time to do those little things? Do you make time for that? Do you realize what's important in eternity versus now, that these tasks that Jesus was doing, and he took the time while he was being betrayed, while he knew the next day. See, I don't have time for that, right? But Jesus is saying this is important. Do you take the time? The other one is titles. You have to lay down titles, right? The Son of God doesn't wash feet. Is that how we do? Right? I'm whatever title I am. Can I tell you something? God doesn't call us by our titles. Did you know that? He's never once said Pastor John, right? He doesn't say that, right? Or bishop or whoever that is, right? Or doctor. He doesn't care about the letters after your name. Let me ask you a question. Is that keeping you from doing? See that rank doesn't do these kind of tasks. You know, I think sometimes we think titles do more for us than they actually do, right? I'm not opposed to them. If you've earned it, that's great. I understand it's a sign of respect, and there's a time and a place to use them. There's a time and a place that you have to use positional authority to get things done. If you're in the military, you got to use positional authority sometimes because everybody doesn't want it done. I got it, all right? What I'm saying is, are you using it as a reason not to serve? You know, if you're a real servant, then you make the title, not the other way around. You know, you can use names. I'll give you one example. Billy Graham, right? Who cares what title's in front of his name? Dr. Billy Graham? Who cares, right? Nobody cares about that because he makes the title. You get that, right? But sometimes we think because I have that title, I can't serve. Can I tell you something? If you're going to serve God, you're going to have to lay that kind of stuff down because titles just don't matter to God. Can I tell you something else? Talent. Are you so talented you can't serve? I've seen that, right? I can't serve with them. I'm more talented than them. I get it, right? I only do it when I have a big stage. I've seen some people like that, right? I only do it when I can get recognized. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned about the foot washing ceremonies, because sometimes I've seen it. And the only way I can actually do these menial tasks is as long as it's hashtag I serve God, I put it on Facebook and everybody sees it, right? Is that how it goes? The real serving, though, nobody wants to see because it's so menial, yet it makes the difference in all of eternity. How does that work for you? Are you too talented to serve? That's kind of important. Can I tell you what Jesus said about that? He said the first will be last and the last will be first. I think we will be surprised at what God rewards in eternity, yet he took the time to wash feet, as talented as Jesus was. Treasure is another one. Our money. Careful, right? Warning. The more God blesses you, the more money seduces you. Is that true? Can I tell you percentage-wise that the people that actually have more money give less? Well, they give a lot, and they think that, right? The warning is this, is that the blessing of God can become your God if you're not careful, right? Do you love the gift more than the giver? Treasure can get in the way. I tell you, it goes hand in hand, time and treasure, because they represent the same thing. And I don't have time to help because I'm too busy making treasure. Is that right? Right? I don't have time. And I got to tell you, I'll tell you this, and I didn't know if I wanted to say this, but I do recognize it in our culture. Even after COVID, some things shifted for us. Where the washing of feet stopped. It used to be if I could call people when somebody was moving, 20 guys would show up with just one phone call. Now it's like nobody shows up, right? It's hard. I'm not picking on you. I'm saying it's not just our church. I've talked to a lot of people, but the whole idea of serving has shifted because we got so self-focused. Our time for ourselves and time away and just the way the culture is, we've forgotten, yet it's so important to God. Can I give you one last T? Temperament. Your temperament can block God's blessing. You see, it's not only what you do, it's how you do it. Now, I know some people don't feel like that. Well, I did it, didn't I? All right. So what do you think? All right. Your mood swings, your attitude, your mean mug, your nasty mouth, your hot head. You think God doesn't care? Let me give you a verse. 2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7. God loves a cheerful giver. You know, Jesus wasn't self-promoting here. He didn't say a lot about what he was doing. He just got down and did it. Watch your temperament. So anyway, there are some things we have to lay down. The passage goes on to say this, John 13, verse 6. It says, he came to Simon Peter, who said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. No, Peter said, you shall never wash my feet. And Jesus answered, unless I wash your feet, you have no part with me. He made Peter basically let him wash his feet. Now, I've used this in the past to talk about Peter's part, and I do agree with this, is that if you don't let other people serve you, then you probably can't serve other people. You need to be part. Some of us only come at it from strength and never weakness that we let other people serve us, and I think that's true. But the challenge, I think, is this, is that Jesus wasn't going to let Peter rob him of his blessing either, you see. Sometimes as the big leader, if that's who you are, and some of you guys have got some really great positions that people think, hey, you shouldn't do that, I'll do it for you. Don't do that all the time. Don't always let them get the check for you. Don't always let them serve you. Maybe sometimes do the things, the people that support you the most, maybe you need to do it for them. I know it's going to feel uncomfortable to them, but do it. It's important. It's important to model what you want done. Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well. And Jesus answered, no, weirdo, just your feet. I'm just playing. That was my paraphrase, sorry. And he goes on to say, and you are clean, though not every one of you. For he knew who was going to betray him, and that is why he said not every one of you is clean. That's why I say he knew exactly what was going on that night. But he did this anyway. You know, he's pausing to do this. He's taking the time to do this to model something that he wanted done to make sure that they didn't miss it, so they would love like him, even during betrayal, even when it's difficult. So he's saying, I want you to take the time to do this kind of stuff, even when everything's going to hell in a handbasket, right? Because that might be where somebody is. I can't serve right now because you just don't understand, right? Got it. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and he returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you? He asked them. You know, Jesus had a great way of communicating. You know what he really meant by that statement? You don't know. Because he said it more than once, right? You don't know now, but you will know later. You don't understand what I'm doing. I'm trying to show you something that's so important. You have to love like me. That means you have to serve like me. Can I say it very bluntly? If you're not serving like Jesus, you're not following, right? Verse 13, you call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also must wash one another's feet. I, your Lord and Master. See, he had confidence. He wasn't subservient. He was serving from strength. He's saying, I didn't serve you because I'm weak. I served you because I'm strong. And now that I have done it, I've laid an example. I've set an example that you should do as I have done for you. If you want to love like me, then here's how it is. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor messenger is greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. Not just know them, right? Do them. So I want to give you a couple things, a couple takeaways for you. 3 things to serve like Jesus. Number 1, step into the uncomfortable. If you're going to serve like Jesus, if you're going to love like Jesus, which is one and the same, you got to step into the uncomfortable. Jesus did a task that no one else wanted to do. It was uncomfortable, right? In fact, he had to remove the clothing that he normally wore and put on a towel. That's not what he normally wore. That's what a servant wears. That's humbling. So my challenge for you is to think about this week. Is there a task that nobody else wants to do that you could do? Oh, I know it's in your way. It's the same thing that would be in mine because it's uncomfortable. Well, I don't have to do those kinds of things anymore, right? There's other people that do those. But maybe as you walk through your week, you could look and just go, you know what, maybe I'll take that on. Not every time, I get it. I get that you got other people that need to work and you got to challenge them, and if you're a manager, you got to do it. But just this week, maybe there's something that you go, you know what, nobody else wants to do it. Everybody else is avoiding it. And you know what, the best thing I could do is I could just do it and not really say anything about it. Wouldn't that be something, right? Step into the uncomfortable. Number 2, expect nothing in return. Now, please don't hear what I'm not saying. I don't mean that you don't expect that it does something, that it's not a valuable thing that you're doing. That's not what I mean. What I mean is for yourself, right? I only do it when I get praise. I only do it. Maybe don't post that on Facebook, okay? Please don't. It negates it. I really do believe it. That God says, hey, the person who gives in secret will be rewarded by God. Are you doing it for the Lord? Because Jesus did it for God. I get that. I mean, that's not what I'm saying, not for nothing like that. What I'm saying is to get praise for your reward. Serve someone without expecting anything back. In fact, serve somebody that can't do anything else for you. Can I tell you something I learned as a pastor? That sometimes they're the greatest things, but a lot of people won't do those things. You know, years ago, before we started the church, I was asked to do a service in a nursing home. And so I did for a year before we started. It was a great opportunity. But you know what I found as far as people serving in nursing homes? People would come if they got a big stage at church, but not there, right? Now, I get it. Some pastors couldn't do it. I'm talking about pastors starting out. It's like, hey, you want to get a chance to speak? Here's a chance to speak, and we'll try you out there. Nah, I don't really do that, right? Too good. Their ministry didn't go anywhere. It's funny. We all say we want to do a hospital for the hurting, yet we don't want to go where the hurting are because we want to go for the hurting that can help us get further and promote us and build a stage for us, but yet there's people constantly that are never visited, never done anything. Do something for somebody that and expect nothing in return, no repayment. It's just kind of powerful. Number 3, make it a daily habit. As you start doing this, and I know it might take some time because it's out of our comfort zone, right? Serving was a lifestyle for Jesus, so maybe look every day for an opportunity to serve. Just one opportunity every day, just a small thing that nobody else would notice that might make the biggest difference. And yet I will tell you, I can tell you story after story after story of small things that make a big difference. Single cup of coffee conversations that God can use. Things that you think are so easy for you that some of you guys are so talented mechanically that if you did that for somebody, you have no idea how powerful it would be for them. For some of us, it's an encouraging word that God didn't give us mechanical skills, so please don't use skills you don't have, right? You get the picture, right? It's like, that's not good. But some of us, maybe it's taking the trash out. Maybe it's, I don't know what it is for you. It's doing something that will make somebody else's life just a little better. Maybe it's a neighbor and you wheeled in their trash can. Or you cut their grass without saying anything. You picked up their stuff without doing anything. Can I tell you something that I know because I've seen it? I remember when we started the church, there was a guy that he never would come to church and all that, and some of the people in group were praying for him, and then a hurricane happened. And they went over to his house, and they just raked his yard. Nothing major. They didn't make a big deal out of it. We didn't announce it to the church or anything like that. It wasn't a scheduled event or anything. Just something that they did because they knew that he had a need. He came to church the next Sunday and he got saved. And 6 months later, he died of cancer. That guy had never been to church. He was out of church for years. But he came because of that act of service. You have no idea what God could do if we did it. So let me challenge you today. Can you find your towel, right? I know you're going to have to lay some things down. I get it, right? I get that it's going to cost you time if you're going to do that. But it might be one of the most valuable things you ever do. Can I just ask, do you know why God gave you extra money? You might not think it is, right? But it is. Next month on April 6th, we're going to be collecting our legacy fund that we collect once a year. We only collect extra money once a year that goes above and beyond, and it's used for things where we help people's needs. I wish I could share all of them, but some of them are private to people, but you have no idea how powerful it is when the church can come and help somebody. And I know you can do it individually, but a piece of that, but maybe pray about what is God calling me to give? You might not think you have extra money, but compared to other people, sometimes we do, right? If we ever looked at the other parts of the world, we go, we're the richest society, and we're so busy making a lifestyle and so busy focused on self. But here's what I know, in serving other people, it will be your greatest reward. Jesus understood that, and that's why he was demonstrating it. That's why he did it, because it was a joy to him. It'll make you happy. But it'll be the most powerful thing you do. It breaks the back of greed in your life. So pray about that. Whatever that God lays on your heart to give, it's above and beyond our normal tithes and offerings, and I get it. Right? Maybe you need help, and the church will be happy to help. Don't think that we won't wash your feet too. You get the picture. But all I'm saying is consider why God gave it. Serve with the money that you have. Do you know why God gave you the talent that you have? Right? To serve. It's funny that sometimes even in our own households, we don't do it, right? Sometimes the wife is making more money now, and she's going, I don't have to serve in that way because I make the money, right? Isn't that funny how it is? Man's saying, I don't have to make the money. I don't have to serve in that way because I got the muscles, right? And we got the muscles and money, and nobody's serving each other. Isn't that funny how that works? In your own house, serve each other. I know. It's going to take time. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know you're tired. I know you've been betrayed. I know you've been hurt, but God could still use you. So 2 things I'll challenge you with. One is this: serve somebody this week. Somebody, just anybody, right? Take this message and just put it in the back of your mind, and as you go through your week, there's going to be something that comes up that says, you know what? I'm going to inconvenience myself to help somebody with this menial task. You have no idea how powerful it'll be. And the second one is this: maybe sign up to help here at church if you haven't, right? I love that you sit here. I love that you come and hear me. I love that you're here. And I'm not judging you if you don't, because I don't know your situation, but all I'm telling you is maybe you just need to start, right? You know, our kids ministry is going to be going to 2 services next month because we're packed. We need help, but we don't desperately need help. That's not the point. But I have a feeling that it's a calling for somebody, right? And maybe there's an area where you're going, you know what? I could serve there, but there's areas that maybe you didn't know you could serve because maybe you're not a person that should work with kids. You got Velcro and duct tape, and you're just going, dude, that's not my, right? But you didn't know you could do sign-in. You didn't know there's other areas that you could help them. We don't want you with the kids. We get it. None of that's going on back there, but you get it, right? And I get that not every need is a calling, but can I tell you, sometimes we use that as an excuse to go, well, that's not really my niche, right? But I've never really found my niche. So you know how you find your niche, can I tell you? Start. Just start, right? Let me ask you a question. You too talented to start? See, they're not using me the way I want to do, so I'm just going to wait till, and God says, if you're faithful with the small things, I'll make you master over many things. We'll move you around. I get it. We don't want you stuck in a position forever that doesn't work, but sometimes we serve just even for a season to help out, to get it through, right? It's not my gifting to take the trash out either, but, right? It wasn't Jesus, right? Is that where Jesus was talented to wrap a towel around his waist and wash feet, but yet he did, right? And he's telling us, he said, if I am your Lord and Master, then you do the same, right? Some of you need to start even though you're hurt. You want to know how you get over your hurt? Start serving. I know what you're thinking, but the more you're wrapped up in self, if you want to break the bondage of self, start serving other people, right? Doesn't have to be here. If you go, I don't like that you're saying about the church and I don't want to serve here, go serve somebody. Get it? Go. I'm talented. Start serving. I'm messed up, right? That's what somebody's waiting on. Well, I'm going to get all cleaned up and finally do it. Can I tell you something? Jesus, when he called his disciples, it's interesting who he selected. I would recommend go back and read who he selected. This will help some people. You know who he didn't select? The very religious. Do you know why? Because all they wanted to do is sit and learn. Do you know what I see in churches sometimes? That we think we're blessed by sitting and learning, just sitting and learning. There's nothing wrong with learning. You have to know to come to the knowledge of the truth. But if you think that it's about just sitting and learning until Jesus comes, you know what Jesus said? He said you are learning and learning, but never coming to the knowledge of the truth, because you're not blessed by knowing God's word. You're blessed by doing it. I'm just challenging you. They just start. Don't wait. You know why he picked them? Because they were disciples. They would get up and do it. And the people that were in the synagogue, they wouldn't. Now, some of them came later. Right? But he didn't pick them first because he don't want a think tank for Jesus. He don't want people to overcomplicate it. It's real simple. Just serve other people. Don't make it more complicated than that. Just start, and God will meet you where you are. And let me tell you something. When you start, God will do more than you can dream or think or ask. And if you want to love like Jesus, can I tell you something? You got to serve like Jesus. And it will bless your life beyond anything you can imagine. Can I pray for you today? Let's stand for prayer. By the way, we got one more message. Do not miss next week. I think it might be the most powerful of the three. Let me pray for you. Father God, we come before you today, and Lord, I thank you so much that when you said to serve, you did it with the towel around your waist. That's such a powerful image. I really can't hardly imagine it, that God, who took on flesh, got down on his hands and knees and washed feet. Not just to demonstrate, because you understood the power of serving, not subservience, not that we're less than. So I'm praying that for ourselves today, Lord. That what you said is that serving is strength. That if you're going to lead, that you need to be a servant. You didn't abdicate your leadership. You didn't abdicate who you were. So I'm lifting that up to us today, Lord. I think there's probably somebody here that the reason why they're not serving is because they're hurt. They're hurting. Maybe they've been abused, Lord, and they need healing. The truth is they'll never be able to do it without healing, but I think if they just cracked the door, if they just started where they were, and I know it's going to be messy, but if they just started, then you'll come in and you'll break that bondage of self. You'll help start to heal them even through the act of serving. I pray for those of us that think we're too good, Lord, that we think, you know what, that's a little bit beneath me. You know what, I don't really have the time for that. That's somebody else. Some of us are doing that in our own houses, Lord, and wondering why nothing's ever getting done, and we're so frustrated, yet we won't help ourselves because we're tired. I get it. But we have to take the time to serve each other. We have to rearrange our schedule, rearrange our lives, and do it, and even the interruptions that come. So I pray, Lord, open the eyes of our heart to some very talented people, and maybe some people that have earned titles. I don't mean to make fun of those titles, Lord, but you don't need a title. You need people that will serve. So I pray, God, help us to be those kind of people. I pray for the one that's messed up, Lord. They don't feel worthy. I pray the first thing is that they realize that you love them right where they are. You see, the problem is some people think that they're doing this because they have to earn something. That's not true, Lord. You've done all the work. We talked about that last week. The mercy and the grace that we need comes from you freely. But we work from love, not guilt. So I pray it's totally different for them, that as they experience your love and forgiveness, that then they can serve. But not wait till they're all cleaned up. That just like you did with your disciples, Lord, you called them, even Matthew, you called him from the tax collector booth to come and serve you. Just as they were, and you loved them right where they were, and too much to leave them there. We'll have to change. We'll have to grow if we're gonna do work for you. But Lord, I think if we did, you will show up in a mighty way. Lord, you said humble yourself, and you will lift us up. And I can't think of anything better than when we serve. Lord, if there's anything else that I've learned from you, God, I pray that we get it. Even myself, because sometimes we get it wrong. Lord, sometimes we think it's accumulation that's going to make us happy, but the truth is, we're more blessed when we give than receive. So Lord, help us to take that to heart. Make us those kind of people in that kind of church, and we'll give you all the honor and glory and praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Guys, if you need prayer, we'll be here after the service for everybody else. God bless you. Have a great week.